scandalous. Julie took the stand again. She took the stand both times. She said, quote, "My husband was a different man behind closed doors. I'm still recovering from everything he did to me all those years."
He just came to a whole new level of enraged. He pushed me against the wall in our bedroom, chest to the wall, face, cheek to the wall. He was pressing me with his body against the wall and began yanking my bottoms down with one of his hands, screaming, spitting on me.
So the prosecution then asks her, well, did you tell anyone about this? Your friends, your family? Like, how come no one's really heard of this before? And she says that she was basically embarrassed.
Have you ever called the police on Jason for any of these incidents?
No, I was very embarrassed. I didn't want my family to know. I didn't want my neighbors to know.
But she did write about it in her diary.
And she says she documented everything in her diary.
Sex 11 p.m., fight 10 to 12 hours.
Julie said that in this diary there was code, that the word sex was actually code for the R word. They were like, well, if you're using that for code, how do we know when you're talking about the normal thing, like regular sex versus R word? And she said, quote, "I wasn't generally writing down when it was regular sex. I wasn't keeping track of consensual sex. It's pretty obvious that this isn't pleasant sex that's going on." Then there were passages in her diary where she's talking about wanting more sex, more foreplay, more variety, longer time, and that she wishes he was like essentially better in bed. And the prosecution's like, well, you know, how is it that he's doing this to you if you're wanting more? And she's basically like,
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, I did write that. Both things can be true.
So if I'm understanding your testimony correctly,
Both things can be
what's
true.
going on at this time, but you're having a conversation with him about interest in sex in your marriage. Is that correct?
Yeah.
In terms of the events that led up to the shooting, she basically said the same thing.
I knew that he was going to me. As he was coming toward me, he said, "I'm gonna kill you, you." I heard a loud noise and felt my hand jerk.
What had happened?
My gun had gone off. I began creeping my way
My gun had gone
out of
off.
the bathroom because I was still just afraid that he was playing possum and was gonna jump up.
Remember the getaway bag? Yeah, this time they brought her father in and they asked him about the contents of the bag. And the thing is, her father had a really bad memory.
Throughout the testimony, as I mentioned, Julie's father noted he did not remember many details.
I don't know if this is selective memory or he really does have a bad memory, but it got to the point where the defense attorney pulled him aside.
Julie's father, though, continuously telling prosecutors that he didn't remember or recall certain information. So much so, in fact, that Harper's attorney apparently pulled him aside during the break and talked to him about his memory.
This is important to note that he did get immunity. Her dad got immunity for testifying. So he wouldn't get in trouble, but perhaps was he protecting his daughter? He seemed very protective in the beginning, all the things he did. I don't know. Then you have a parade of people testifying. Neighbors testified.
He was often with his kids. He was very friendly. He was kind.
A recording of an argument that Harper's had, an argument secretly recorded by Julie Harper. In it, Jason Harper swears at his wife.
Marriage is hard. It's not easy. There's times when there's conflict. It's not ideal, but there's times when words are exchanged. I've experienced it myself.
We carpooled with one another, and in that time, I noticed a change in Julie Harper, and I noticed that she was really out of it, and I didn't allow carpooling with my daughter any longer.
And then it was time for the kids to testify, and it was awful, bad, horrible, depressing.
How are you doing today, Jake?
Not good.
Why not good?
Because I really don't want to be here.
How come you don't want to be here?
So I want to be in school. And Julie told us that he was when he fell off his chair, he got dead, I think.
How do you feel about your mom now?
I don't like her
Why not?
because she killed my father.
And she refuses to call her mom mom. She calls her Julie because she doesn't feel like that's her mother anymore. Then you have some experts come in.
It is a cream-colored pouch, zipper pouch. It has 2 cell phones and 2 batteries.
A computer specialist went over all the activity on the Harper's home computer.
It is a log of internet sites that were looked at that time, that day.
At around 8:36 on the morning of Jason Harper's death, before viewing a pay stub, that person went to the California Teacher Association's website, viewing the legal as well as the benefits and insurance sections. Jason was a Carlsbad High School teacher.
Also today, a field evidence technician testified it was difficult to locate the body in the master bedroom, hidden under blankets and other items in a bedroom cluttered with boxes, water bottles, computer equipment, and even more. The prosecutor said Julie Harper was a hoarder who lived in a chaotic mess.
And then we heard from Jason's family.
I said, "Are you safe?" Something just didn't feel right. I screamed and said, "It's so final."
I passed one of those CSI looking trucks, and that's what I was pretty sure that Julie had killed my brother.
Julie Harper has showed little emotion throughout this retrial.
What put the nail in the coffin for Julie was when they debunked her accident theory that she pulled the trigger on accident. The prosecution asked the judge if they could actually bring the same type of gun she had, a Derringer 38 Special, I think, and have the jury pull, it's a dry gun, meaning there's no bullets in it, not like the one Alec Baldwin had.
Jurors got to hold a gun and pull the trigger inside a Vista courtroom today. Jared, why did prosecutors, who of course are trying to convict Harper, put a gun in the jury's hands?
Virginia, they're trying to show to the jury that pulling the trigger of that gun is no accident, and they wanted the jury to feel just how much force it needs. That's the sound of the trigger clicking.
It's very unlikely for that to be an accidental pulling of the trigger. And then it was time for the jury to deliberate, and it only took them one day.
We've got breaking news. The verdict has just been read in the Julie Harper retrial.
The verdict comes after only 1 day of deliberations.
Julie sits anxiously in court at her retrial as a second jury is about to deliver its verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Julie Harper, guilty of the crime of murder.
Julie wiped away tears when the jury returned with its guilty verdict. Julie was put in handcuffs. You see her mouth the words, "I love you," to her father.
The day after Julie was found guilty, she did some jailhouse interviews.
One day after a jury convicted Julie Harper of murder, she agreed to speak with us in a jailhouse interview.
I'm really sick. Fortunately, he's free. Doesn't treat me very well. It felt like the district attorney keeps gotten on me and blatantly lied throughout the case.
Why did you become pregnant knowing that you may go to jail for 40 years?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. A big part of it has to do with what happened with my other children and what went on there. Dramatic separation by law enforcement and the district attorney's office. Sorry, I'm losing my voice so much now. Maybe we could try to talk off camera.
She sits in a cell here at Las Colinas.
Julie Harper behind bars. She's the mom recently convicted of murdering her husband.
Because she's been screaming. She's screaming. She's been screaming like me.
Her baby
I know the
was
feeling.
raised by her parents.
I miss my daughter so much. I am innocent of any criminal wrongdoing.
Jailhouse Julie. We're about to interview California convict Julie Harper.
Hi, Julie. How you doing?
Well, I've been better, obviously.
Why didn't you call 911?
Well, unfortunately, my husband passed incredibly quickly. I also just didn't want them to have to, visually see anything. I didn't want them to have those kind of nightmares or visions in their head for the rest of their life.
Where's the gun right now, Julie?
I don't know, unfortunately.
Watanabe claimed during the trial, Julie had planned to murder her husband, perhaps to be with another man she'd been seen with after her husband's shooting.
That's completely false. I have many good friends. The person that they were referring to was someone that is a very dear, close friend of mine, but I was completely faithful to my husband during our entire marriage.
Who is the father of that child?
It's an anonymous donor.
And with that, Julie Harper gives a wave. God bless you. And our interview ends. There she is right now, off back to her cell.
And then it was time for Julie's sentencing, and she blessed the court with a 40-minute rambling speech.
Before the sentencing, Harper spent nearly 40 minutes in a rambling speech.
Her speech, which went on for more than 30 minutes. She was talking about all sorts of different topics, rambling on, and it got so bad that the judge had to redirect her back to this case.
But he was a very different man to me. And it has been so hard to go through all of this for the last 3.5+ years. And that broke my heart. The physical pain that I went through has healed, but the emotional pain stays. After what I went through with him for years and years. And
Julie Harper is a selfish, arrogant, and vile person. She threw away her children and made them orphans.
Then the DA read a statement from Harper's oldest daughter.
Because you killed our dad, you are no longer Mom. You are Julie. I will never call you Mom again.
Well, 3 jurors came out today to watch Julie Harper get sentenced, and afterwards they basically came this close to calling her a sociopath.
We thought she was a liar. We thought she was manipulative. I think she's a horrible woman, and she's a liar.
Harper issued this plea to her children.
Mommy wants to apologize to you guys for everything you've been through.
The judge was not moved.
You are sentenced to 40 years to life.
So she is currently incarcerated at the California Institution for Women in Chino in Riverside County, California, and she will be eligible for parole in 2039. So those are the facts. Now let's discuss the theories. So basically there are 2 theories. There might be like a hybrid theory. The first theory is that she's innocent. And so if she's innocent and it is self-defense, the things that lead to that are, in her divorce documents, they mentioned that the police were called and Jason was told to leave the house. And so maybe there was something going on. Then there are the videos of him yelling and screaming, holding the baby, which, I don't know, makes him seem a little bit unhinged. Then there's the getaway bag, which could go either way. Like, was she really at her wit's end and planning to leave and then slipped up and told him, I'm divorcing you, I'm leaving, and he snapped and she had to do it. There are no things on her body, though, that show that she was being physically harmed. Which brings me to the other theory, which is that this wasn't self-defense. And the thing that lets me believe that maybe it was a premeditated thing was the Google searches. She's searching for benefits. Benefits that you would only get when your husband dies. Why is she searching for benefits if she's planning on leaving and fleeing and never seeing him again? The fact that her children hate her. Then there's the whole thing with the gun, right? How it can't be an accident. Why is she saying it's an accident? Is it self-defense? Is it an accident? It seems like she's trying to cover all her bases. I don't know. You have the fact that the bullet was in his back and there are no signs of a struggle. So was he simply caught unaware? That's what many jurors believe. I believe that it wasn't self-defense, in the moment she was gonna die and she had to do it. But I do believe their relationship was probably really toxic. Maybe he was saying things to her that are absolutely awful. Maybe he was gaslighting her about her illness. Does that mean she should kill him? No, just leave him. Did she kill him in the hopes of getting those benefits? But then why'd she file for divorce? Maybe she didn't think it through and it just all kind of happened that morning. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. There's so many different things. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And almost forgot, thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate that. All right, see you guys. Bye.
It started as two neighbors having drinks and ended in tragedy.
Back in the day when you were younger, if you were in an altercation with somebody, you hit each other. That was it.
It was just after 11 o'clock on Saturday night when police were called to this home in the Calgary community of Auburn Bay.
There was a guy stabbed multiple times by me. Oh my God. I stabbed him everywhere.
Broke two knives off, and a big butcher knife he bent like a banana. What person would do such a thing?
It's like just like everything changed. Mood, you know. I was drunk having fun, and then all of a sudden I was sober, and he had me by the throat with my shirt twisted up and up against my counter, and trying to like had his one hand like always by my face, threatening to punch me and telling me to stop moving and to like let him have sex with me. Reached around and got him in the back a couple times, and then that's kind of blurry.
This bizarre story still seems to have more questions than answers.
Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel.
Today I want to talk about the Craig Kellaway and Nicholas Raspberry case. This case has got people divided, but not really. Most people are kind of on one side, but there are a few people who do believe Nicholas. So as usual here on my channel, I'm going to give you guys the facts. We'll talk about the theories, and then you can decide for yourself. As always, I need to thank my subscribers. Thank you guys so much. And if you are new here, hi. This is me. I wear a tinfoil hat and I talk about true crime and conspiracies, usually mostly cases where it's both. With all that being said, let's dive in. So the whole thing started on May 4th, 2013. It was a Saturday, and Craig met Nicholas for the first time that day. And by the end of the night, Craig would be dead. It actually happened several minutes after this photo was taken. This is the last photo of Craig when he was alive. Craig is the one who's getting his cheek squeezed, and Nicholas is the one squeezing the cheeks. This case takes place in Calgary, Canada, in a neighborhood known as Auburn Bay. Craig was a middle school teacher, and he had recently moved into Auburn Bay. Nicholas, who lived 2 doors down from Craig, was an engineer in the oil field. And so being that Craig was a new neighbor, Nicholas decided to go over that day. The first day they met was the day everything happened. And so he goes over in the morning and knocks on Craig's door and it's like, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm your neighbor. Me and my wife, we live two doors down. So Craig was actually going to have a barbecue that day. And his girlfriend, she didn't live with him, but she was going to visit and come to the barbecue. So he was like, okay, how about you and your wife, the Raspberries, why don't you guys come to the barbecue as well? And so they said, okay. And that afternoon, Craig had a barbecue at his house where Nicholas and his wife attended, as well as other people, and Craig's girlfriend, Lindsay. So they have the barbecue. By all accounts, everything was fine. People were drinking, people were eating, and it was all good. Then as the night kind of went on, or the day was turning to night, shall I say, Nicholas invites Craig and his girlfriend, one other couple, to his house, 2 doors down, for drinks to carry on the evening. So they say, okay, they kind of go from Craig's place to Nick's place, they continue drinking. And so as the night wore on, eventually the couple that wasn't, Craig and his girlfriend and Nick and his wife, they left. And then Nick's wife, she went upstairs to go to sleep. So once that happened, Lindsay, the girlfriend, she was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to leave too. She's like, I'm going to go walk Craig's dog to a nearby park and come crash at Craig's. And so when she left, Craig and Nicholas were alone, and she says they were fine. They were drinking beer and they were talking and it was fine. So she goes, she walks the dog at the nearby park. As she's walking back to Craig's home, she sees ambulance, police. She sees a stretcher with somebody on it coming out of Nick's house, and then she sees Nick arrested. She freaks out. She goes over there and she kind of got upset because the ambulance wasn't going and taking Craig, and that's when the officer told her he's dead. So the media picked it up. The local news was just saying that there was like a death in this Auburn Bay neighborhood and the homeowner was arrested, and the cause of death is going to be released soon pending autopsy. Now keep in mind that this all happened at around 11:30 at night when Lindsay came back and saw the ambulance and the police and all that. That was at 11:30-ish. Later on, Lindsay would find a picture on her phone at 10:36 p.m. and that is the picture, the infamous one, which is the last picture of Craig with Nicholas. That was taken at 10:36 p.m. and Lindsay says she doesn't even remember taking the picture. So that should give you an idea of just how much everyone had been drinking, because right, they're day drinking at the barbecue. They go over to Nick's house, they're still drinking. So by this time, by 10:30, 11, they're all trashed. So although Nick and Lindsay's blood alcohol levels were not tested, they did do a toxicology on Craig and they found that his blood alcohol level was 6 times the legal limit for driving. Along with the toxicology, the autopsy revealed Craig's cause of death, and his cause of death was stabbing. Craig was actually stabbed 37 times with 3 different knives. So it was literally overkill, literally. And as if that wasn't disturbing enough, once the 911 call was released, it was so disturbing.
911 for what city? Hello?
Hey, in the ambulance right now.
Okay, are you calling from Calgary?
Yes, there was a guy stabbed multiple times by me. Oh my god.
Okay, so we do have the paramedics on the way. I need to ask you some questions, okay? Are you with the patient now?
Yes, he's right here, but I don't want to go near him. He tried to...
Okay, how old is he?
I don't know. 30.
Okay, is he awake?
Yeah,
Is he breathing?
Yes, barely.
Okay, we do have the paramedics on the way, okay?
Okay.
All right. When did this happen? Sir, when did this happen?
Just like 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. Is there any serious bleeding?
Yeah, everywhere. All over. Jesus Christ, fucking yeah.
Okay, what part?
I stabbed him everywhere.
Okay, sir. Is there more than one wound?
Yeah, I just stabbed him over.
Okay. Sir, listen to me very carefully, okay? We have lots of...
Ugh. Where is she typing?
It appears that duct tape in 7 Days to Die 1.0 is a bit of a bottleneck for most people, so today I'm going to teach you how to farm it. Let's get to it. Did you know every part of the duct tape recipe is farmable? Well, it is. And I'm going to tell you how to farm each part of it, and this is going to be a short and sweet and fast video, so buckle up and pay attention.
He's good, I like
Duct
him.
tape, you need 1 glue
Fire
and
Spark
7
81,
claw. Glue is made
200K.
with either bones and water or supercorn and water.
Bones and water.
Let's start off with farming cloth. Cloth is super easy to farm. 1 cotton equals 1 cloth. You can farm cotton very easily. All you need to do is have maxed out living off the land and farmer helmet, farmer chest piece, and the farmer boots. Ideally, you want tier 6 of all of this, but at any tier of these 3 pieces are going to help you significantly when it comes to harvesting more and increasing your chance to harvest seeds. I highly recommend doing at least least a 4x4 plot of cotton, if not more. Doing at least a 4x4 plot with tier 5 or higher gear and maxed out living off the land is not only extremely renewable, you're also going to be swimming in resources. If you're looking for a good farming, just all around base support build, I have a build guide for that. Check out the link down in the description to find out more. And aside from having a living off the land and the farmer gear, you're also going to need to be reading the seeds books or the farming books in order to learn how to craft cotton seeds. Because while most of the time you'll harvest most of the seeds you need, you'll still need to craft some in order to refill your 4x4 plot. Alright, great. Now that we got cloth out of the way, let's move on to glue. First off, supercorn. This is going to be much later in the game, but eventually you should get the recipe needed for supercorn, then you should find some supercorn seeds, or at least maybe be able to buy some from the trader. Once you do this, the same farming setup that I recommend for farming infinite cloth with cotton will work for the supercorn as well. This should leave you in more than enough supercorn for part of the glue mixture. It's also much more efficient because it only takes 2 supercorn and 1 water to make a glue, where the lowest you can get for bones is 4 bones and 1 water. But early game, you're most likely going to be using bones and water in order to craft your glue. The only way to farm water is just make a whole bunch of dew collectors and get the upgrades for the dew collectors. I wish there was some other magical way to farm insane amounts of water, but making the dew collectors and having at least 5 of them, if not more, is going to have you literally swimming in water. Once you have all of these upgraded, they should be making you 2 water about every 4 hours. The dew collector will hold 2 water in each slot, and it has 3 slots, which means you should be able to harvest all 3 slots twice a day if you're diligent about it, and that should, if you have 5 of these going, be about 60 water a day. I know getting multiples of these things can be a little bit on the pricey side, but it's well worth the investment if you need a ton of water because you need a ton of duct tape. So start investing in your dew collectors early. Okay, let's talk about bones. It is 100% possible to farm bones, and the easiest way to do it is to exploit Horde Night. So there is a mechanic that prevents you from being in a vehicle or on a bike and just riding around all night during Horde Night. And that is when you get in a vehicle or on a bike, it will spawn these crazy vultures that will spit at you and attack you and slow you down and basically lead to your demise. Because of this, we can exploit this by getting on a bicycle inside of a horde base. So the setup for this is pretty easy. This uses my go-to horde base design, and if you don't know what that is, I'll also link that down below. Check out that video. I'm not going to get into the overall setup for the main design here, but I am going to talk about how to easily farm the birds. So in the roof of the structure, you need a 2-block hole. Then you want to line the inside of that hole with the block labeled hole double. This leaves a gap big enough for corpses to fall through, but it's too small for the vultures to actually get through. Then on both sides of that 2-block hole, you want to put blade traps. Wire your blade traps up. On the front of the structure, you want to put a pole going out, and then you want to put a blade trap there as well. When the zombies run up the ramp and across this thin pole, they'll hit the blade trap. The blade trap will do damage to them, knock off limbs, and knock them off the pole. This way you don't have to deal with them as much, because it will still spawn zombies, it just spawns the birds as well. Do note that there's a fine balance here because you can only have so many spawns at a time per person. So if you're not on the bike, it'll just start spawning lots of zombies. If you're on the bike, it will spawn the birds and spawn the zombies. But if you have too many zombies going and they're not dead, then it will never spawn the birds because it can't, because all your spawn slots are filled by zombies. You can do this with 1 person, although it's very difficult. It's much better with 2 people because you can have 1 person standing at the front of the horde base mowing down zombies and harvesting birds, running repairs, while the other person just hangs out on the bike. If you're doing it solo, you're going to have to get on and off the bike. It's not too bad if you have the blade traps running, because the blade traps will help keep the zombies down, allowing for birds to spawn. However, if you don't have blade traps, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt. Anyway, I digress. So if you have your blade traps going, all you do when Horde Night starts, before it starts, just get on your bike, place it down inside your horde base and get on it. Wait patiently. Be right underneath the hole. The birds birds will spawn. They'll fly into the blade traps, they'll die. They'll either hang there at the top where you can farm them in the gap, or the corpses will fall down on you. Once you get a bunch of corpses, you just farm them, then get back on the bike. Now, if you don't have blade traps yet, you want to do the same setup, except you don't need the pole out in the front because you're not going to put a blade trap on it. You only need the single pole coming towards you, and you do the same setup with the hole in the ceiling. The birds can't get through it. I advise using a machine gun and just firing at the birds as they show up above trying to get to you. You're just going to alternate back and forth between the birds and the zombies, ensuring that the birds have spawn slots available to them. Once you've killed all the birds, you kill a bunch of zombies, quickly hop back on the bike, wait for more birds to spawn, get off the bike, rinse and repeat, all while running repairs. Speaking of repairs, let's quickly talk about the resources. So you're going to need a ton of steel to repair the blade traps if you're running the blade traps. You're also going to need a bunch of cobble or cement if you have it upgraded to cement. I do advise upgrading the base to cement, as the front of it will be able to take that much more damage. You'll never really need to upgrade the top of this thing to cement, as the vultures don't do a ton of damage to blocks. But you will be running a lot of repairs, so I do advise making sure that you have enough resources available to you to run said repairs, because you're not going to be able to attack the zombies at the front of the base while you're on the bike, so the front of the base is going to be taking a lot of damage. Once again, this is ideally done with 2 people, but it is doable as a single person. Once Horde Night is over and it's all said and done, you should have more than enough bones to make a ton of glue. You can also get a lot of bones if you max out Huntsmen and go around harvesting animals. They're going to give you a lot more bones than they normally would. Combining all these methods gives you an easily renewable source of all the crafting components necessary to make duct tape. And this, along with just your normal going out and looting, should ensure that you have more than enough duct tape to craft anything and everything that you could need to craft that includes duct tape. Alright, and that is it for this one. Told you it was going to be short and sweet. Hopefully you found it helpful and informational. If you did, please consider hitting the subscribe button and notification bell.
Hello everybody, today I'll be showing you how to get a lot of cloth fragments in 7 days to die. Simply go to a... 1 second. Alright, that should be all of them. Now, find yourself a OK Laundry or a clothes store. Simply just go up to these. They should have lots of, depending on your level of looting, they should have cloth fragments.
7 Days to Die has an absolutely broken set of
I'll be right back,
armor.
I gotta pee.
7 Days to Die has an absolutely broken set of armor, and today we're going to talk about it. Let's get to it. What you're looking at is the most broken armor in 7 Days to Die. And I know I often call things broken or OP, but this one really is. So much so that it often feels like cheating. It feels like you are in ghost mode. And for those of you who may not know what I'm talking about, ghost is often an admin command that you can run on many different survival style games where the enemies just can't see you. You're not in God or anything like that. You can still die. Everything about you is the same. You're just invisible to the enemies. And that is what running the assassin's armor feels like. It is so strong that you can walk right up to a zombie, stare it right dead in the eyes, and then knife it in the face and get sneak bonus damage. Not only that, if you get spotted, all you need to do is find the tiniest bit of shadow and then hide, and the zombie will lose you. you. It is so strong that when you are in a shaded area or within shadows, you can stand up, so not be crouching. The zombie will see you. You can crouch in the shadows and it will stop dead in its tracks. You are completely invisible when you are crouching within the shadows. That's not powerful enough for you? How about you shoot a zombie with a bow and you don't kill it on the first try, and it just stands there because it has no clue where you are. But 99% of the time, that is not going to be the case, because if you land a headshot with a bow, you do such insane damage that you can take out the most feral or radiated of big to small zombies with a single headshot from...
The help on the way. I was talking, it's not going to slow them down.
My daddy's done.
Pardon me?
My dad's very young.
Okay, so we do have help already on the way, okay? Now, when help comes, is it going to be safe for us to go in?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm over there in my front door.
Okay.
So the 911 call itself is actually 12 minutes long, but we don't have all that audio. I was able to get like a clip that was played in court. So here are some quotes that I want to read you from some articles that describe more of what we actually hear in the clip. He immediately says, he tried to F me in the ass. Okay? And he says that over and over. He tried to F me. He tried to F me. He tried to have sex with me and I effing killed him for it. So when the paramedic had asked him if he was showing signs of life and stuff, he said that he was making gurgling noises. Then the operator tries to get Nick to help Craig, and he doesn't want to do it at first. It says, when asked by the 911 dispatcher to help the victim, Raspberry, an engineer in the oil patch, at first refused to do so and kept asking why it was taking so long for paramedics to arrive. Yes, he's like not even breathing anymore. I think I killed him. I'm not touching him. I'm not touching him. He tried to F me. That's why I effing killed him. I'm not effing touching him. I'm looking in your mouth. I effing hate you. But how come there's no ambulance here? I live right next to the hospital. They say that Nick was actually vomiting on the 911 call. So I don't know if that's because he was disgusted or he was drunk, or probably more likely both. And it says here that when they asked him to go and try to help him, he said, quote, will do, even though I effing hate the guy. Near the end of the call, they say that you can hear him kind of talking to the police, like as soon as they show up, and he says, I didn't do anything wrong, I was attacked. So this is going to be Nicholas's defense, right? It's known as the gay panic defense. This gay panic defense is basically like, you know, you panic because you have homophobia, literally, like you're afraid of the gay, and so you panic and you want to defend yourself, and so you attack, right? And so that's going to be the crux of this case. Do we A, believe that this actually happened? B, was this such a threat that it warranted this intense response? You know, that's all going to come into play later on. Immediately, Craig's girlfriend denied the allegations.
She says she strongly rejects Raspberry's statements, and she says Raspberry took her boyfriend's life, a math and science teacher, and Carla, now she says he's trying to take away his reputation.
He was really loved by the community, at least from what people are saying. Now we know that just because you're loved by the community doesn't mean you're innocent and you can't do anything. A lot of these people who do stuff like this are like master manipulators. Oh, keep in mind, he also had a 5-month-old son from a previous relationship, and the mother of his child said, no way, like I never saw any of that in our relationship. The girlfriend said she never saw any of that. And so, and then obviously the parents, they were like the most upset.
It's not over for that Raspberry. Definitely not over for him. It's just starting. We're fighting a battle for our son. And we'll keep fighting that battle for our son.
Nicholas was arrested at the scene. That's what Lindsay saw, Craig's girlfriend. And so soon after that, a day or two, they interviewed him. And there are videos.
The girlfriend once again took the dog and said she was going home. So it was the three of us, my wife there as well. And then my wife went up to bed. And we continued, we stayed downstairs. And then at some point I just felt like the night was drawing to a close. And I'm not sure if I said I was gonna go to bed or if I said I had to take the dogs out to pee, but I kind of remember just kind of making it clear that like the night was kind of over. And then it's like just like everything changed, mood, you know. I was drunk having fun, and then all of a sudden I was sober, and he had me by the throat with my shirt twisted up and up against my counter and trying to like had his one hand like always by my face, threatening to punch me and tell me to stop moving and to like let him have sex with me. Like I was surprised. I'm not a small guy, but he was manhandling me, and I was ready to just start swinging. And then he started to, his wife's upstairs, she's next. My counter's like this, and I'm in the back corner, and right beside us, and right there's a knife block. I made separation, and I grabbed a knife, and I stabbed him right, like, reached around, got him in the back a couple times, and then that's kind of blurry. And I think at one point either the knife fell or it broke or something, and I remember, I think I grabbed another one, I was pushing him away, and we made our way into like our kitchen is connected to our living room, made our way to the living room. Okay. He fell, and it was over, he fell, I was done. All I remember is putting the knife back on the counter, grabbing my phone, calling 911, and before it was just fists, you know? And I was prepared to get beat up and fight back, you know, and then the whole wife thing came into it, and, you know, and I grabbed the knife, and at that point, it's like I honestly felt like it was him or me, you know? It's like I did what I had to do in the situation.
Do you think your reaction was appropriate to what's going on?
Yeah, like, yes. Like, beyond a shadow of doubt. Like, I've been going over it a million times now. Like, what could I have done differently? Like, I grabbed, like, the coffee makers, like, I grabbed the coffee pot, give a toaster, like, what could I have done differently? And, like, he's got five and it's like, you know, my wife's okay, and I'm here, and I'm happy about that. And I just wish there was something to say, you know, I'm like, if I hadn't been drinking, you know, would I have been able to diffuse the situation, or, you know, or would the situation be happen? It's like, you know, like, good or bad, I go to jail for the rest of my life, or I don't. It doesn't matter, like, I'm from Calgary, like, everyone's gonna do that. And the only way I can explain it is that I have to tell people exactly what happened.
Now here is where a lot of people started to doubt Nick's story. They found him to be not telling the truth. They thought he was lying, okay? They thought he was lying. They felt like it was kind of fake, and that his emotions, the feeling sorry was fake. They felt like he was not telling the truth at all. Even the interrogator who was talking to him, or the detective who was interviewing him, because that's what they say now, interview, not an interrogation, she said that she didn't believe it.
You're doing the holy shit, and he's gonna beat the shit out of you because you just made a move on him. You took a step because you've been drinking to take that move and make that move, and it was a mistake, and he reacted, and he's gonna beat the shit out of you, and you get scared, or you see red. At the moment, you're protecting yourself by making him the aggressor in this, where clearly the scene is gonna tell us that you're the aggressor. Like, you've stabbed this guy a lot of times, and really, like, you've eviscerated him, his bowels are hanging out. Those are huge injuries. And I mean, are we gonna find him and go back in that house that you stabbed him in that living room when he's on his back? But he didn't do anything to you other than hold you by the shirt. What did he do?
Trying to have sex with me, threatened to punch me, threatened to punch
It's just assumed. Yet. Yet.
And that's where I trust myself and I trust the person I am. And in that situation, I felt like I did what I had to do.
He's like, this man intends to rape me.
You know, better him than me and my wife.
And also what she noticed was that Nick, did not have any injuries, any scratches, any scrapes, none of that. And so the threat that he had was, you know, talking about him grabbing him by the shirt and pinning him against the wall and punching, like not punching him even, but threatening to punch him and telling him that he wants to F him and that he's gonna get his wife next, the one who was upstairs sleeping. This was the threat that Nicholas said made him do what he did. And what he did was, he said in the interrogation, there was a moment of separation. That's when he grabbed a knife, and then he started stabbing him. He kind of says from the back, so I don't know how threatening it is. And then that knife broke, and then he grabbed another knife. He stabbed him some more. That knife broke. Then he grabbed a third one.
What?
And that was bent.
Oh my God, he stabbed.
At what point
He stabbed so much that 3 knives broke.
stop? You know, this is the point of contention, right? People are saying, well, listen, if you're not the aggressor and you're simply attacking someone to defend yourself, usually when the threat has been neutralized, you stop. Because you're not like the aggressor here. You're defending yourself. What people are saying is maybe what actually happened was the opposite. Maybe he came on to Craig, especially when you look at that last picture, people are saying, you know, he's being handsy, he's grabbing his face and all that. Maybe he came on to Craig. Maybe Craig rejected him harshly. Maybe he threatened to tell. And then she also questioned him about, why didn't you run? Why didn't you like run out the door and ask for help from the other neighbors? And he said, well, I didn't want to leave my wife. And he then kind of switched gears and made it about his wife. He was like, you know, because they were kind of the same size and height and build. They were both kind of fit. So it's kind of like, why didn't you just, if he was threatening to punch you, why don't you just beat him up with your hands? Why did it go to this extreme? And so he was saying that, you know, once his wife was brought into it, it changed the whole situation. And he was like, it's either him or me. But why did you grab like 3 different knives, even after 2 broke, and then you bent the third one? Like, bro, I don't know. And that's very passionate too, you know, like, I don't know. People were saying that he was worried about himself because he was like, oh my God, you know, my life, I ruined my life. Like the whole neighborhood's gonna know, like, oh my God. And then towards the end, then that seemed like genuine. And then towards the end, he talks about, oh, he has a 5-month-old baby. Like, and the energy isn't the same. According to some people, you know, my conspiracy allegedly, don't sue me, but they're like, the fear that he had for himself was more genuine than when he tried to pretend like he cared about the fact that now this 5-year-old baby, or sorry, 5-month-old baby doesn't have a father. Speaking of the 5-month-old baby, there was actually a little faith in humanity moment that happened.
This game seems to be lacking intensity. You'll have to excuse the athletes. They've been playing floor hockey for almost 60 hours straight.
60 hours.
24 players sleeping and eating here.
Floor
since
hockey.
Friday night.
Why?
1 hour off.
Why?
The tired, the injured.
I'm rotating through runners myself so I can move my blisters around a little bit because some hurt my toes and some hurt my heels.
Why? Why would you do this forever? Why?
All for the sake of 2 goals to make the Guinness Book of World Records for
Oh.
the longest floor hockey game, and most importantly,
A friend of ours had a kind of a tough year last year. The father of her baby boy was killed when he was only 5 months old.
Floor hockey? Fucking floor hockey. I want to move to Calgary and just join an endless floor hockey game. That sounds fucking
year and
amazing.
a half old now, and he has no idea they're all playing hockey for him. Blake was just 5 months old when his father, Craig Calloway, was stabbed to death last May.
What?
Yeah, it's been a fairly rough year for us.
It's been a fairly rough year. Yeah.
The
community came together to raise money for this little.
What? Fucking endless floor hockey game. That's Canada for you. That's the most Canadian thing I've ever heard. I'm more Canadian than an endless floor hockey game. I swear to God, I'm more Canadian than American. I believe in that more than I do anything I've ever heard out of America. What's the coolest thing I've ever heard out of America? George Washington telling no lies. But having lived with these politicians as long as I have, I understand that to be a lie. So I think the endless floor hockey thing is cooler than anything America's ever done.
Kid, and it was kind of like.
Well, I don't know. We have Taylor Swift, so I don't know. I'm talking about like anything we've ever created. No, we have Taylor Swift. I don't know, or whatever. I don't know.
Warming and nice, and then, you know, got depressing all over again, per usual. So now the trial begins. And nobody's going to be happy at the end of the trial. Both sides are going to appeal at the end, and the public is outraged. So this is what happened, right? Nicholas, he had some good lawyers, and they went with the gay panic defense, self-defense. Their whole approach was he should have never been arrested in the first place.
Our position is we don't even think he should have been charged.
And the prosecution, or as they call them in Canada, the Crown wanted to charge him, or they did charge him with second-degree murder, and they wanted him to obviously do a lot of time. So when the trial began, you had Nick, who some people, especially Craig's mother, said put on a show where he was being very dramatic. When he saw himself, whether it was the 911 call or whether it was footage of his interview, he would wipe away tears and he would bury his head in his hands. He would, you know, just be very emotional. But when they would describe the gruesome and graphic nature of the attack on Craig, he would be very stoic. And sometimes he would even just close his eyes as they were showing the pictures. And so a lot of people were like, come on. Other people, though, were like, no, this guy is going through it. He didn't want to do this. He was trying to defend himself and his wife. And so, you know, you had more people on Craig's side, but there was still a decent amount of people who felt bad for Nick. As part of the trial, they had the medical examiner come up, and in a PowerPoint presentation, he went over every single stat, okay? And it was like, when it was played out like that, it seemed so intense and unbelievable. And he revealed that not only were a few of them on their own fatal, but that some of them were done after the heart stopped beating because there was no blood coming out of them, which meant that even after Craig was dead, Nicholas was still stabbing him, which means even after Craig was no longer a threat, Nicholas was still stabbing him. And this was a major point. This was the overkill and what is this really about? And is this really self-defense? Because come on. And then other people were like, no, if you've been attacked or threatened to be attacked,
I believe you had sex with this man, didn't you?
And you would go that
I think
far.
you did.
And it's not just for him, it's for his wife and blah, 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 and that
His
whole-
wife.
The other thing was that Nick had no defensive wounds. Not only was he not punched or attacked or anything, he had no defensive wounds. Not only, but there was no actual evidence of Craig trying to violate him or take it from him, because like his pants weren't unbuckled or buttoned, Nick's pants weren't unbuttoned. There was no actual physical evidence of that. It was just Nick saying that Craig said he was going to do that to him and had him, you know, with his shirt roughed up and his hand was like that. That's what he did. He said, I'm going to do this to you, supposedly, and your wife is next, and this. And this made him stab him 37 times with 3 knives. So I want to read you some descriptions of the blood that was all around, because there was a lot of it, and what it kind of indicates and what it tells us about maybe what actually happened. So it says here, Constable Jody.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bump my mic.
That there were also drip stains on the kitchen floor.
Oh, I'm gonna go. Get a beer. I'll be right back.
Or object contaminated with blood matched to Calloway, that's Craig, moving around the room. She also found that splatter stains on the kitchen island shelving and on the living room furniture indicate a probable match to Calloway striking those surfaces. Arns said stains consistent with footwear indicated the wearer of the shoes traveled from the living room into the kitchen and back to the living room. Pools of blood in the living room show a person bleeding, also matched to Calloway. Again, Craig. In the same areas for an undetermined period of time. According to Nick said that he was hemmed up and pinned in the kitchen, threatened in the kitchen, and he went and grabbed the knives and it happened in the kitchen and all that. But this spatter shows that like Craig was running away from him all over in the kitchen, in the living room, and grabbing stuff and falling on stuff, and that, you know, there were certain areas where he was just lying there bleeding out. So it seems like he was trying to get away from Nick rather than Nick defending himself from Craig coming towards him. Now I want to talk about what the officers testified to in court regarding Nick's wife. Okay, remember, she went up to bed and was asleep and slept through the whole thing apparently, and this is what the police said happened when they arrived on scene. So it says the first two police officers to arrive at the scene, Constables Cody Bell and Francis Zinn. Zinn said Bell made the arrest and they walked Raspberry out to the police vehicle parked across the street. He said he then returned to clear the house and found the accused's wife sleeping in the upstairs bedroom. Quote, "It took a bit to wake her up. She thought it was some kind of joke. We said we were here for a serious incident. She changed clothing. She was a little giddy when talking with us." Both Zinn and Bell said Nicholas Raspberry was cooperative and coherent. He also did not have any difficulty walking or communicating, although Bell said he could smell alcohol on the accused's breath when he spoke. As handcuffs were being placed on him, Raspberry said the victim had tried to SA him, Bell told the court. Later, Zinn also recalled Raspberry saying, "I got attacked," and the victim tried to SA him. He said Raspberry told him, "I even tried to resuscitate the mother effer." As you can imagine, this case was pretty sensational, and there was a lot of online speculation, and people were following the case online. That's when a video was dug up. So this video, I want to give a disclaimer. The video was posted 14 years ago on YouTube. So way before this incident happened, this video was up. And the video is titled Nick Raspberry Halloween 06. I'm not sure if this is the same Nicholas Raspberry or if Nicholas is even in the video. I mean, Nicholas Raspberry doesn't seem like the most rare name in the world. So it's very likely that this has nothing to do with the case. It's also likely that this has everything to do with the case. So that's my disclaimer. Let me show you the video.
I don't think they know that somebody's taping them right now.
I don't think they care. That was the lamest high five.
What the hell?
Oh, one more is joining. It's almost like YMCA.
It's like Night at the Roxbury.
So the video is posted by a YouTube channel. It's also likely that this has everything to do with the case. So that's my disclaimer. Let me show you the video.
I don't think they know that somebody's taping them right now.
I don't think they care. That was the lamest high five.
Totally in love with themselves. Completely. Oh, one more is joining. It's almost like YMCA coming to life.
Y'all look like YMCA coming to life.
So the video is posted by a YouTube channel by the name of C Daddy Dubs. They joined in December 27, 2006. So shortly after, like 2 months after Halloween. And this is the only video that they posted. There's nothing else on the channel. This video was posted December 30th, 2006.
It's one of the girls there.
So they made their account on the 27th. 3 days later, they posted this video. Nothing else was ever posted on the channel. And that was it. Like, this channel seems to be created to post this video and nothing else. Again, this happened way before the incident. Let's talk about theories real quick, because this video is part of one of the main theories in the case. Because really there are two theories, right? Or maybe three. The first one is what Nick is saying is true. That's what happened. Theory number one. Theory number two is the theory that the officer that was interviewing him proposed, and what most people think, which is that he came on to Craig and they referenced this video saying that, like, look, this is how they party, and maybe, you know, he was drunk and it was late at night and he was alone and he did something and Craig was not having it, and it just like erupted in this crazy situation. And they use this video and to kind of like say that. Okay, now the third theory could be that it had nothing to do with gay and coming onto or anything, that for whatever reason something else happened that made Nicholas do this. Maybe Nicholas had this in him and he was going to do it anyway. We don't know. But people tend to believe that what you'll do when you're trying to make a story up is you'll kind of
embellish.
You half truths. You'll take the truth, but you'll twist it. Like, this really happened, but he did it and I didn't do it, you know, kind of thing. So you believe what you want to believe. Alcohol was obviously a huge factor in this case. You know, they were all drunk. The wife, she slept through the whole thing because she was probably in a drunken slumber. Trust me, I've been there. It's the best sleep ever. And then, you know, the girlfriend, she doesn't even remember taking
It is the best sleep
she was
ever.
Drinking. They could smell alcohol on Nick's breath, but he wasn't stumbling and stuff, so maybe
This
he had
tree
a
is
high
not
tolerance.
real.
And then the blood alcohol level, Craig's blood alcohol level was tested, and that was 6 times the legal driving limit. And all the witnesses who were at the barbecue and the other couple that was there said that they were drinking all day. So drinking comes up again because after the trial was done, 1 day before sentencing, Nick gets arrested for DUI. Kind of reminds me of that video I did with the Charlie and Nicole Olsen case. But he does. Let me tell you what happened. It was a Christmas party, and Nick was apparently the bartender at this party, and he was out on bail. So he was out, he was bartending, his parents were at this party, he was supposed to be the designated driver for his parents, and then he was in a checkpoint, and he blew not over the legal limit. The legal limit is 0.8. He blew between 0.5 and 0.8 because
0.7.
Nick was out on bail and he wasn't supposed to be drinking. And then he got caught drinking. Even though he wasn't over the legal limit, he still got arrested.
Dumb white boys always have problems like this. It's hilarious.
A day before he was sentenced. So they took him in, he was in custody, and then the next day was the sentencing. And here's where people get upset, because they felt like Nick's family were equating him being arrested with Craig's death as if they were the same when they weren't. Before the judge handed down the sentence, there were victim impact statements for both sides. So you had a lot more victim impact statements for Nicholas. He had like 9 letters from friends and family that were submitted. And then you had Craig's parents and the girlfriend who had their statements. So I'll just read you what each side said. This is from Craig's dad. The day I laid my son to rest is the day I wished to be buried with him. He was my son and best friend. Then Craig's mom, she talked about how she just is still dealing with trauma and panic attacks and nightmares. She said that she lies awake at night wondering what his last moments could have been and how much he suffered. She said, did he defend himself? Did he beg for his life? My heart is broken into a million pieces. Nick's parents, on the other hand, they said, we firmly believe there were 2 victims that night, and we beg of you to be merciful to our son in sentencing. Then Nick's wife spoke out. At this time, she was his ex-wife. She said that the stress of the, getting arrested and him being in jail and all this stuff basically ruin their marriage, but that she still considers him her best friend. So this is what his wife said, ex-wife. She said, Nick and I weren't just husband and wife. We meant the world to one another. We were best friends. It was the loneliness, heartache, and exhaustion that ended our marriage. The Crown, I don't know, it's not allegedly, that's what they're called. The Crown wanted 15 years for second-degree murder, and the defense wanted 0 time, and that's it. They wanted him to be free. The judge convicted Nick of manslaughter, which was the lesser charge, and gave him 7 years with time served. So it was going to be like 5 years and a few months. And people were pissed.
We are disappointed because, I mean, I don't understand the justice system. It doesn't make sense.
But then Nick was pissed too, and he was like, no, this is self-defense. I shouldn't do any time.
Of course, we're disappointed in the sentence, but we'll take instructions as to whether we will go to the Court of Appeal. How much can you do to protect your wife and yourself from being sodomized?
And so both sides appealed. Here is what the judge said.
They're like, you're scared of gay like me, right? Let me off.
He said that Nicholas did not intend to kill Craig. Which honestly, it makes sense, right? Because when you stab someone 37 times with 3 knives, you're not trying to kill them at all. You are trying to teach them a lesson. When has a stabbing 37 times ever killed anybody? Never. But he did say that
it's a hate crime mixed up with a lie.
Force. So I'll read you the quote. He said that he did not view the stabbing as mere self-defense. Raspberry stabbed Calloway 37 times. In doing so, he broke 1 knife and had access to another. He broke a 2nd knife and bent a 3rd. It is important that the sentence denounces the crazy excessive force used by Raspberry in killing Calloway. The number of stabbings and slashings with the use of 3 weapons is a substantial aggravating factor in this case. Another aggravating factor is the devastating effect on the Calloway family. He was of good character and had never been in trouble with the law. It seems to me like maybe the judge believed that this was a self-defense thing and that maybe, he just like went crazy, and so it's not really, he didn't intend to do anything, he just went crazy. I don't know. But that's what the judge said. If you thought this was bad, it only gets worse. Because they were appealing, Nick's defense attorneys filed for him to get out on bail pending the appeal hearing, and it was granted.
Just 2 months after Nicholas Raspberry was sentenced to 7 years in jail for the death of Calgary teacher Craig Calloway, he's once again been granted bail. For Calloway's family, it's another devastating blow.
Where? I don't understand this.
The Alberta Court of Appeal granted Raspberry release while he waits for his appeal to be heard. He's filed appeals for both his manslaughter conviction and his sentence.
Well, he wants us all over, so he's not going to be jumping for joy or whatever. He just is focused on coming to a conclusion.
Not only was he bailed out, but he had a parole hearing, one of 2 parole hearings, and in the first parole hearing, he was granted day parole.
Raspberry is working at a Calgary bar. The victim's family watches his social media posts with disdain.
Scale of 1 to 10, I'm way past 10. My son is gone. And he's out there and he's enjoying himself.
And then a few months after he got day parole, he got full parole. Okay? There were some conditions. They said that he can't consume alcohol or drugs. He has to receive counseling for substance abuse and violence. He has to report any intimate relationships or friendships with a parole officer, which I found to be interesting. And he can't have any contact with Craig's family. The parole board then said that they reviewed both victim impact statements from Calloway's family along with letters of support from people close to Raspberry. Since being granted day parole in the spring, they said that Nick has started working with a friend's company. Then he got a full-time job, again, engineering in the oil fields. They wrote that he has been able to spend time with family and a network network of positive supports while following COVID-19 restrictions. They said that he also completed a reintegration and life skills program. He had one-on-one bi-weekly sessions with a counselor where he was described as stable and able to demonstrate that he has, quote, appropriate skills in dealing with stress. As you can imagine, Craig's mom, she was disgusted. You can feel that they don't have any closure, and then their son's reputation has been tarnished. And then there's this baby boy that doesn't have his father. He doesn't even know him, 5 months old. Like, he doesn't remember his dad. Just the whole thing was pretty tragic. This parole happened December 2020. So, several months ago. That's the latest on this case. Nick is free. I would love to know what you guys think about this case. Do you think that Nick was telling the truth? Do you think Nick was lying? What do you think about the sentence? Was it too light? Was it just right? Bars. Not funny. He only did two years, maybe 2-3 years for I mean, he used as many knives as the years that he got. 3. It depends on, what you think. So again, let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel.
I had to put on my reaching hat. Hear me out.
2 young children vanish without a trace. Hours later, their mother also goes missing.
Police say Catherine Hoggle got on a ride-on bus Tuesday night near the Chick-fil-A in Germantown, where she was last seen. She rode the bus to the transit center at the Lake Forest Mall in Gaithersburg and then got off. There have been no reported sightings of 3-year-old Sarah or 2-year-old Jacob.
This bizarre security video. Days of searching lead to a strange development. Their mother is found, but the mysteries surrounding her odd behavior and her missing children have only deepened.
It's heart-wrenching. Some parents are missing 1 child, and you're missing 2.
Hi, and thank you for clicking. Today I want to talk about a case that was brought to my attention by a subscriber. Her name is Lady Hawk. And hi, Lady Hawk. Thank you so much for suggesting this. I looked into the case and I actually found some striking similarities between this case and Lori Vallow, particularly in how the mothers acted and what they said happened after their kids went missing. Before I begin, you guys know I have to give my thanks to my returning subscribers, old and new. Thank you guys so much, especially your support on my live that I did with Linda from It's a Crime. It was so cool to see the comments from usernames that I recognize back.
It's a Crime. Cool.
The Chris Watts case is back in the news with new...
Oh, yeah, there's a whole nother girl. Cool. It's a Crime. So, okay, we'll follow It's a Crime. Okay.
From when I had, barely any subscribers. I'm getting a little verklempt. If you are new here, hi, this is me. I wear a tinfoil hat and I talk about true crime and conspiracies, especially both cases where it's both. And this is definitely that. So let's dive in. This story starts 6 years ago on September 7th, 2014. It was a Sunday and things were actually going pretty good that day. Troy and his girlfriend who lived with him, she kind of was his common law wife, Catherine, they went to their son's soccer game and they had 3 kids together. And they went to the soccer game, they had fun, and then they went to a park afterwards and they all hung out. And Troy, the father, he actually works at night. So he stayed at the park with the kids until he had to go to work. And then after that, Catherine and her father went with the kids. Around that time is when...
The hell was that?
So he had to go to work. And then after that, Catherine and her father went with the kids.
Oh, it's somebody trying to start their car.
Around that time is when Randy Hoggle, Catherine's father, took Catherine and the kids to her mother's house. And when they got there, her mother wasn't there. Now, Randy and Lindsay, Catherine's parents, were divorced. But Randy decided to stay in the house with Catherine and the kids until Lindsay got home. The reason for this is that Catherine could not be alone with the kids. She also couldn't drive, and we'll be getting into that a little bit later. But for now, you just need to know that. At this point, Catherine is home with her father and the kids. She tells her dad at around 4 p.m. that she has a coupon, or is it a coupon? Either way, I say coupon. She had a coupon for a pizza, and she wanted to go get this pizza, and she wanted to take Jacob with her. Now, supposedly, Jacob was clinging on Catherine's leg, and the father sort of relented, even though Catherine was not supposed to drive and not supposed to be alone with the kids, but yet her father allowed her to do both. So she left. 2 hours later, Catherine comes back home without the pizza and without Jacob. She tells her father that Jacob was at a sleepover with his older brother's friend. Later on in the evening, they decide to go back to the apartment that Catherine lives at with Troy and the kids. So the father takes them back to the apartment. It's late, so he spends the night there too, and Troy gets back home at around midnight, which is his normal schedule. So he gets home, he's tired, and he notices that Jacob is not in the bed that he usually is in, but he says that this doesn't really raise any alarm bells because little Jacob tends to leave his little bed and go and sleep in the bed with his siblings. So he was tired. He kind of was like, okay, maybe Jacob got up and is with, his siblings. He didn't really want to wake them up because then he would be up and everybody would be up. He was tired. So he just assumed that Jacob was there. He didn't check and he went to sleep.
Normally, I would have kissed them all goodnight. I was just tired, and selfishly in my mind, I was thinking if I wake one of them up, then I'm up. So I just went ahead and went to sleep.
So you didn't check the rooms because it was just a long day.
Right, and I had no reason to think there would be anything,
The next morning, Randy, who's the father, Catherine's father, he left early. And then later on in the morning, the oldest son wakes up Troy, and he's excited to go to school. And so Troy wakes up, and as Troy is walking through the house, he realizes that nobody else is there, which is not supposed to be the case. Then he goes in a drawer, he looks, and he notices that the keys to the family minivan are gone, and his wallet is gone, Catherine is gone, and the two younger kids are not there. So he tries to reach her, he can't, and he kind of freaks out. So he decides, okay, I'm gonna take my oldest son to the bus stop to drop him off at school, and then right then and there at the bus stop, after he waves goodbye to his oldest son, he calls 911. As he's on the phone with 911, who shows up but Catherine? She pulls up alone, and she basically tells him while he's on the phone, oh, I didn't want to wake you up because you came home late, but I ended up dropping off the two little kids at a daycare. And, it's all a misunderstanding. They're fine, whatever. So Troy on the phone with 911 goes like, oh, she's here, like false alarm, misunderstanding, never mind, hangs up the phone. Troy was upset at the fact that, first of all, they had an arrangement where she wasn't allowed to be alone with the kids and drive, but at the same time, she had told him that they were talking about possibly putting the kids in daycare. And so when she said that she had put them in daycare for a trial run, it seemed believable to Troy at the time. So he was like, okay, even though he was upset and it was kind of weird, he was like, okay, makes sense. So then she had like a treatment center appointment that she had to go to. So Troy takes her to her appointment, drops her off, picks her up. When he picks her up, it's 2 p.m. So he tells her, okay, we need to go and pick up the little kids from the daycare. This is where it gets weird. So then Catherine says, oh, I don't remember the name of the daycare or the street of the daycare, or I don't have the phone number for the daycare either. So Troy's like, you mean to tell me you dropped our kids off at a place and you don't know the name of it, you don't know what street it is, you don't even have a phone number for it? And she goes, they have my information, but if we get to the area, and she said that this daycare was in Germantown, Maryland. This all takes place in Montgomery County, Maryland. She tells him, you know what, if we get near the area, like I can kind of figure it out. So he's like, okay, so they get in the car and they're already in the car. So they start heading over towards Germantown to look for the daycare. Troy says that the more they drove around, the closer they get to Germantown, the more evasive and vague Catherine is being. Troy's fed up and he's like, you know what? We need to go to the police station. We need to contact the police, like something's wrong. So then Catherine says, okay, but I had just taken my medication, which the side effect of her medication makes her sleepy. And so she's like, you know what? Let's stop at this Chick-fil-A. They were near a Chick-fil-A. Let's stop here. I'll get a sugary caffeinated drink and, you know, I'll wake up and then I'll be able to help you like find the daycare better. So Troy agrees. They go to the Chick-fil-A. And then I think in the beginning he says they go together and then like they're about to leave. And then Catherine's like, oh, I need a refill. And so he waits in the car while she gets the refill. Now, at this point, this is on surveillance camera. When you look at this footage, you can see there's no audio, but you see her and she seems calm, but she is sort of looking over her shoulder a lot. And then we do find out later that she gets on her phone and she makes some phone calls, which we'll talk about exactly what those were. And long story short, she decides to walk out of the Chick-fil-A from a side entrance and she basically vanishes. So Troy is waiting for her. He realizes after a while that she's not there and he immediately freaks out and goes straight to the police station. He gets to the police station and he tells them that his wife and his 2 younger children are missing and they're missing under suspicious circumstances. A search ensues and everybody is now looking. It's all over the media. They're looking for this mother and her 2 missing kids. A few days into the search, there seems to be somewhat of a break. Police come out and they announce, we found more surveillance footage of her. This time it's from September 9th. It's 4:30 in the morning. It's actually really close to where the Chick-fil-A is. And she's in like a federal building. And again, she's acting weird. What you see is you'll see Catherine walking around in like a weirdly calm way. And then she goes back and forth a few times and there's like double doors. There's like 2 sets of double doors. And she kind of gets stuck in between them seemingly, where she looks like she's trying to get out, but she can't. And then she's like really trying. And then she kind of leaves the inner set of doors open with her purse. She walks around some more. And then when she comes back, she's able to like open the door, takes her purse and leaves. And that's all you see on the surveillance footage. What is very disturbing is what you don't see, and that is her children. She does not have her children. Once the police release this surveillance footage, well, it looks even more suspicious for Catherine. And now they start working on an arrest warrant because it looks really bad for Catherine, right? Why are you hiding and on the run seemingly? You know, you won't answer where the kids are. You have all these weird stories that don't make sense, and now you're gone and the kids aren't with you. What is going on? So then an arrest warrant is issued for Catherine, and I would like to read you part of the arrest warrant because it is very telling. You can pause it to read everything, but I just want to read you like certain parts, right? A lot of this I've already mentioned to you. I do want to go all the way to the bottom the last paragraph. On September 8th, 2014, at approximately 1800 hours, Troy Turner told Catherine Hoggle the police needed to be involved to assist in locating Jacob and Sarah. As they drove to the 5th District Police Station, Catherine requested to stop at the nearby Chick-fil-A restaurant. While at the restaurant, Catherine Hoggle exchanged text messages with her mother. During these text messages, a family member advised that they were talking to the police about the disappearance of Jacob and Sarah Hoggle. Catherine Hoggle responded via text that she was with her children and everything was fine. Video surveillance from the Chick-fil-A shows this to be false. Catherine Hoggle then abruptly left the Chick-fil-A, evading Troy Turner. Next page. The investigation has revealed the following facts. Jacob Hoggle did not have a prearranged playdate or impromptu sleepover at a Playmate's residence on September 7, 2014. In fact, this Playmate's family has not seen Jacob in over 3 weeks. Jacob has not been seen by any caregiver or family member, to include his now missing mother, since approximately 1900 hours on September 7, 2014. Additionally, no daycare has reported Sarah and or Jacob being dropped off on September 8, 2014. There has been extensive media coverage of this case over the last 24 hours, and no individuals have come forward to advise they have seen Jacob and or Sarah. The only confirmed sighting of Catherine Hoggle since the evening of September 7th was video surveillance from a facility in the area of the Chick-fil-A. This facility is not an institution Catherine Hoggle has authority to enter and has no justifiable reason for being there. The contents of Catherine Hoggle's purse were located within the facility, which includes payment methods. There are no other adults or children with Catherine in the video surveillance, which is 36 hours after the second child went missing. Investigators cannot identify any means that Catherine has to care for, feed, or provide shelter to the children. Investigators can say Catherine Hoggle and no other responsible family member or licensed caregiver has had contact with the children for at least 36 hours. And then it says, blah, 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 you can read the rest. So after the arrest warrant was issued, Catherine's father, Randy, remember the one who allowed her to go? Yeah, he was, poor guy, going through it. I'm sure he was like so beating himself up about it. He publicly begged Catherine to come home to get help.
Good morning. I'd be remiss if I didn't start, ladies and gentlemen, by thanking Montgomery County Police Department. They have worked tirelessly. There are so many people trying to help, and we just appreciate that tremendously. I don't usually cry, so I apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could, I really am saying this for my daughter, and this is a plea to my daughter to come home and have help. Many people deal with mental illness. Many families deal with mental illness. It's always a judgment about medication and the delicate balance of medication being taken. We know she's probably not been on medication for 2 weeks, and thus we know, Catherine, this is not you, and this is not who you're about and what you do. You were the first of 4 kids to give me a chance to be soccer coach. Probably was never good at it, but certainly did my best. You and Troy give me a chance to have Clint on the soccer team. Next week we're going to work on him going toward the right goal. But we want Sarah and Jacob to have those same kind of opportunities. The first kiss, the first homecoming, the last prom in a full life, and we want you to do that as well. Everyone here is committed to, if you just come and get help, we'll all help you. And for that, I just want to say, please come home. We miss you, and we miss the kids.
All right, so speaking of her getting help and the mental illness and everything like that, let's talk about why Catherine was even in the position where she couldn't have the kids and she, couldn't drive. What happened, okay? So this actually goes way back to when she was in middle school. Even though Catherine was very, very bright, she had a hard time completing her classwork. And she ended up getting diagnosed with a learning disability. They said that she had, quote, problems with her executive functions, things like planning and organization. Then, as time went on, doctors also expressed concern with her, moods, and they said that she might possibly have bipolar disorder. And that diagnosis would later change to paranoid schizophrenia. So after high school, Catherine enrolled in a community college. And then in around 2007, she started waiting tables. And it was at this job that she would meet Troy, who would then become the father of her children and who she lived with, although they never did get married. Troy was the bouncer in the place that Catherine was the waitress, just for context. A year after they met in 2008 is when Catherine gives birth to their first oldest son. And by all accounts, Catherine seemed to be a good mother, very attentive. There's even like this anecdote that her mother tells about how, when she would babysit, Catherine would have index cards with like information like how to mix the formula, when to feed him, a reminder to keep pillows out of the crib, like things that, a caring, attentive mother would do. And so everything seemed fine until Troy began to notice some troubling behaviors, and it all stemmed from Catherine's paranoia. She started to imagine that there were people out there who were trying to break up her family, trying to ruin her relationship with Troy. Because she had just given birth, and this kind of started happening after she gave birth, Troy thought it was postpartum depression. Keep in mind, he has no idea of her history of mental illness. He was kind of upset about it after the fact when everything kind of like went crazy. But, I don't know, that's kind of a touchy subject. Like, he kind of feels like he wishes the parents told him about it after she had the kid. But then again, I can kind of understand the parents not wanting to, I don't know, it's a touchy situation. But the fact remains, he did not know that she had this history of mental illness. He thought it was postpartum depression. Things seemed to be getting better for a while. She had 2 more kids, the kids that would end up being missing. And then things seemed to go bad again. So in 2013, Catherine became convinced that Troy's sister was essentially stalking them, breaking into their house, stealing from them, and she believed this to a point where she actually filed a motion in court asking for a restraining order from Troy's sister. This is what she told the judge, quote, "We go to the grocery store, she shows up there. We start going to a different grocery store, she starts showing up there. I go to take my kids to the pediatrician, she shows up there. I go to my mom's house, she shows up there." The judge ended up declining to issue the restraining order, and then the theft that she claimed was sent to, I think it was the state attorney, and he declined to press charges. So it seems as though these were unfounded claims and beliefs that she was having. The paranoia continued to worsen. There was an incident that Troy talks about.
He began to notice strange behavior.
There was that I was running around, which I wasn't too. There was a woman following us who wanted to raise the kids with me and take her life. And then it became things like she would have me pull over and cover her mouth while she was talking to me.
He said that she was like, thought that the car was bugged and was looking for the bug in the car, like, a listening device. Troy was trying to like make light of it somewhat by telling her, oh, no one's following us, we're too boring, nobody cares about us. But she was convinced, you couldn't tell her otherwise. Her family felt like they had to intervene. So they end up having her, evaluated and sort of like forcibly put into a mental institution. And this happened a few times, and one of the times she actually tried to escape by taking another patient's like shoes and trying to run away. And I think she managed to escape, and then it got even worse. So like by the time it's the end of 2013, Catherine now believes that someone is trying to perform an exorcism on her, and they're trying to cut off her limbs. And she's convinced of this. And so again, they get her institutionalized. They put her at this major institution, and they start trying to figure out what they're gonna do. How are they gonna integrate her back into their lives? And so they decide, okay, they're gonna put her in this institution, and then she sort of transitioned into a group home. And then she transitioned into having like a few more privileges with the kids. And then Troy tells her like, listen, if you get your act together, you can come stay with us again. You can live with the kids. Like, And so she seems to get better. She gets back into the house. She's now living with them. And they decide as a family, like Troy and her parents, they all decide like, okay, we need to get a system in place, a plan. And they come to this conclusion of like, she cannot drive and she can't be alone with the kids. There always needs to be another adult, one of them, around when Catherine's with the kids. And that's how we get to the situation that I told you guys about in the beginning where these rules were in place. This is why. So now she's back in, she's on new medication, and her father seems to think that she's doing well. She seems to be that attentive, caring mother that she was back when she was doing the index cards. And her father says that, she wouldn't just open up the books and read to the kids. She'd ask them, why is this funny? What does this mean? Very engaging, right? Then, unfortunately, soon after that, he starts to see things going backwards. And it appears to be due to her medication. He says that, the medication made her tired and disassociated. And instead of her, opening the books and reading to the kids and asking them questions, now she would just open the book and stare off. And the kids would kind of have to read the book for themselves. And she wasn't really interacting with them. It was discouraging for them, but they realized, okay, we really need to make sure that we're supervising and that, she has some additional support when she's with the children. This was obviously a lot of work for the family and the extended family as well. So it was around this time that the kids went missing that Catherine and Troy were talking about possibly putting the kids in daycare or maybe even hiring a nanny or something to where the burden wasn't so much on the family. This brings us all the way back to when Catherine is telling him, I took the kids and I put them in a daycare for a trial run because obviously they were talking about this. Okay, so now we're back to when Catherine is missing and the warrant is out for her arrest and her father is begging her to come back and get help. Okay, are you still with me? I know I kind of went all around, but I'm trying to make the story flow in a way that makes sense. Okay, so somebody recognizes Catherine and they call police. She was in the Germantown area. She wasn't even that far away from where she was last seen and where she was seen on the surveillance camera. Like, she's still in that area. So they call the police. They tell them, police come up. They find her. When they find her, they say that she looked disheveled and that she had cut her hair. She appeared to be attempting to alter her appearance. Remember that, please. It has now been 4 days since she went missing. In addition to her looking disheveled, she's wearing the same clothes that she was wearing when she went missing. And police actually said that when they saw her and called out to her, and she realized that it was the police, there was a brief chase, according to them, but then she was apprehended and they took her in for questioning. They questioned her for 15 hours, and during those 15 hours, her story changed a few times. So her first story was that the kids were fine. They were with her friend called Erin. The police then asked her, what's Erin's address? What's her phone number? And much like with the daycare, she couldn't give them an answer. But she said, if you give me my phone, because they had taken her phone, if you give me my phone, that's where the information is. So the police gave her her phone, and they say that instead of giving them information on Erin, she started deleting stuff off of her phone. Crazy like a fox. Allegedly, don't sue me. Keep in mind that the police said that during their interrogation or interview, whatever you want to call it, that she was lucid and she seemed totally normal to them. Once that story fell through, she changed her story again. She said that, she actually took them to a park and abandoned them at the park. So they then went on this crazy search. They searched 13,000 acres around the surrounding areas. They didn't find anything. After this questioning, 15 hours, they couldn't get anywhere with her. They couldn't find anything about the kids. Eventually, she gets arrested and charged with a misdemeanor. A few misdemeanors. I think it was parental abduction, child neglect, and hindering a police investigation. She then gets committed to the Clifton T. Perkins Hospital Center, which I'm going to be calling Perkins, just plain Perkins. And it's a maximum security psychiatric hospital in Jessup, Maryland. So while she's at Perkins and the kids are missing and everybody's looking for them, she gets these calls from her mother, from her father, from Troy, from her aunt, so many people, and they're all asking her the same question: where are the kids? In one conversation, she tells her dad, they're fine, Dad. I promise you they're alive. He then asks her to be more specific. She says, I can't talk about that where I am. She always makes it seem, just like Lori Vallow, like people are listening. I can't tell you. Then in a conversation with her mother, she says that she wants to help and she actually wants to guide police to where the children are. Once the prosecution finds out about this, they decide to quickly have this hearing, and they want to ask the judge to be able to take Catherine out of this facility for a few hours with police so that she can show police where the kids are. And her lawyer argues against it. He's like, no, she had a change of heart. She doesn't want to talk to them anymore. She's traumatized. She's got all these issues. And the judge agrees and does not allow Catherine to be taken out of the institution to show police where the kids are. I don't know how I feel about that, but that's what happened. One of the things that Troy latched onto is the fact that the police said that there was dirt under Catherine's nails when they found her. And there were other things that indicated that she may have been in the woods. So based off of this information, Troy then started a search in the more wooded areas surrounding the areas where they think the kids could be. Unfortunately, they came up empty-handed. And then there were also issues with surveillance.
I'm pretty sure that Jacob was brought to my apartment before they actually disappeared. I have several reasons to believe that. And so it would appear to me both kids went missing from Clarksburg. Now, granted, Jacob was last seen with her at her mom's, but I have things that show me that they came to my house. And then from there left, he changed clothes. His shoes that he was wearing that day are at my house. A few days later, I'm sitting there and we're going over how there's 2 points of missing and stuff. And I'm looking at my pictures on my phone from the day that we were playing at the park. And I noticed what shoes he's wearing. I look down and his shoes are sitting right beside me. So, pretty sure they came back to my place and then disappeared from Clarksburg, essentially. So that would actually be a pretty good meeting spot to do something like that, to get right on 355, head up, down, wherever you're going. And it was set up to where the police, all they had to do was call up there and go watch the video, because the whole parking lot's on video. I went up there and talked to people up there, got it set up, and they never followed up on it. I mean, there's things that just weren't followed up on that should have been, and I don't even know if it can be at this point, where a year later, I don't know how long the data is kept, stuff like that.
In another thing that reminds me of the Lori Vallow case, and if you don't know that case, I'm sorry, I talk about it a lot on my channel if you're watching me for the first time, but her mother goes out and speaks.
What do you think happened to Sarah Jacob?
I think that I want to believe that what she says is that she entrusted them and that they're safe with someone, that's what happened. I believe they're out there. I believe they're with someone.
Which kind of reminds me of Janice, remember when she did that interview with Summer, Lori's mom and sister, and they're like, no, the kids are okay, the kids are okay. Of course, I mean, you're not gonna expect that your sister or daughter is capable of something horrific, right? So, I mean, I understand that. While Lindsay is, telling the public that, she's also putting the pressure on her daughter privately. She's calling her daughter and she's telling her as a mother, I'm asking you as a mother, where are the kids? Again, Catherine sidesteps the question, unfazed, as usual, just completely talking in circles, giving the same old answers. No, nothing. Police are building murder charges at this point. So it's been a few months since Catherine has been arrested. Her lawyer files a motion stating that the doctors at Perkins have declared Catherine to be incompetent to stand trial. Her lawyer then goes on to say that, you know, she didn't eat for weeks when she got there. She lost 16 pounds. They had to put her on this crazy medication, that the police were going in there and talking to her when they knew she had an attorney and that she was incompetent to stand trial, like they shouldn't have spoken to her, that messed with her. Basically, now, you know, Catherine is becoming the victim, and she's now not even, maybe even liable for any of this because she's incompetent to stand trial. The judge accepted this decision, you know, because they respect the doctors at Perkins, and if that's what the doctors are saying, you know, the judge is going to go along with it. But there's still room for, you know, appeals and counter things, and they're trying to see if she starts to improve and become competent, and this sets off a chain of hearing after hearing after hearing, trying to see if she's competent, and all the time, every single time, no, she's incompetent, she can't stand trial. The problem is that her family, the people who know her, are like, what? No, she is competent. I mean, yes, she has mental illness, but not to the point where she doesn't even know right from wrong, or she can't understand what's going on.
No, she's just evil.
It's not that bad.
She's just evil.
Or is it?
Just say it.
Troy spoke to media.
Well, that was a complete act today. She sounded nothing like that on any of our phone conversations, on any other conversations I've heard. That was an act. That was an act where they medicated her right before they came here.
You believe she's playing the system?
I don't just believe it. She's told me so much as that. She has explained to me her entire process.
Searches are still going on, and nothing is progressing. Nothing is happening, right? Like, there's no progress in the court, right? It's constantly like, no, she's still incompetent. She's still incompetent. They're not finding anything in these searches, so it's like a standstill. It was around this time that Catherine's mother has a change of heart.
I think the point that Troy made that's most important here is that Catherine is afraid of being charged further and going back to jail. She's now finally realizing that she does have a mental illness. She feels safe at Perkins. She wants to stay at Perkins. 2 months ago, when she was here, she was wanting to be competent. That has taken a nosedive since 2 months ago. She's afraid of being sent to jail, and she's very capable of being competent sooner rather than later. She understands.
Because she's crazy.
The problem is she doesn't want to go to jail. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A conscious.
Because she'll get eaten alive in there because she's crazy. Yep.
For fear that she would be sent to jail. And somewhere along the line, that's going to be made clear to her what the charges are going to be, if they are. And somewhere along the line, make a change in the law where it keeps her at Perkins, which is where she belongs. That's where she needs to stay.
And then after that, Troy, Catherine's mom, Lindsay, and then Catherine's aunt have these signed affidavits that they submit to the court, basically telling the court that Catherine is competent to stand trial, and that this is all an act, and that they are determining this based off of their interactions with her. So I just want to read you a little bit of what each one of them said. So this is what Troy said. Catherine has told me that she wants to be a patient. She takes Zumba and does yoga at Perkins. She does not want to be a prisoner, and that if she sticks to this path, someday she will be released and will be able to live with her mom. She told me she even took a class on competency while at Perkins to figure out what she has to do. She says she feels safe at Perkins.
Rushmore.
She says she feels safe at Perkins because it is protecting her from jail.
I'm sure it is. Schools are very, very sacrosanct.
She knows exactly what she's done.
Yeah, she knows exactly what she's done.
She did it. She knows what she did.
She knows what she did.
I spoke to her enough whenever, you know.
Trifling.
She would even tell me what she could or can't talk about. She was confident enough to talk to people in the state police and try to set me up to make it look like
I'm sure.
And have them sitting there listening on speakerphone.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I mean, she knows exactly what she did.
Yeah, I think she does.
Easily.
Yeah.
There's nothing to solve. Like I said, it's not a mystery. We know what happened. It's just where she put them, facially and the way that she was looking at me, and even at times moving her mouth whenever I was speaking about what she's done. She was reacting as someone who seemed pretty confident and understood everything. I don't know if anyone else in here who was in the courtroom noticed or looked
She
at
knows
me
what
while
she
I was
did.
talking, but she was 100% reacting to everything I said. I mean, there's things that have come out, like, you know, like the doctor who's...
This guy's smarter than her.
...who's barely seen her, hasn't spent, I don't believe, more than...
He's got limits. A smart man knows his limits.
It's not to say that you can't do an evaluation and figure that out, but if all you're going off of really is what the treatment team is telling you, the treatment team, they're not there for an evaluation, and there's a reason for that. Because, you know, they have a certain agenda that they have to attempt to treat her, and it's kind of hard to keep yourself separate while doing that. So she's pretty much, you know, it sounds to me like she's banking on remaining incompetent. She has her plan. Her plan is to stay there, stay out of jail, and she would like to, she even told me how long she has until they have to release her, you know, for being incompetent, which I had never heard that, the time frame until I heard it from her attorney, which further tells me what she told me before is true, that he's advising her to remain incompetent. I mean, he's telling her exactly how long it is. And the fact that she can count down those days as well as explain to me her sentencing, including time served, how long she would have to stay if she has the 2 neglect charges at 10 years if those stick. She's explained not just to myself, but even in court to the judge that she understands everyone's roles, and with everything that she said, she's clearly capable of helping her attorney with her defense. So I don't understand where the incompetency line is wrong for this.
And now this is what her mother, Lindsay, had to say. Based on my lifetime exposure to Catherine and my current regular contact with her, I am absolutely confident that she is fully competent. Catherine understands precisely what is going on in her case, and she's trying to work the system to her advantage. Catherine is extremely intelligent, but also an extremely manipulative young woman. She has an IQ of 135. Even through her adult years, she has been an expert at what I call splitting, playing her siblings and others against one another by telling them each something different to get each to work for what she wants and to build animosity. So then Catherine's aunt, Lee Blevins, she actually was the only family member who visited Catherine like in person at the facility at Perkins, including a span of daily visits over an 11-day period. So that's like she had a lot of interaction with her while she was at the facility. And she said, quote, that Catherine is choosing to be portrayed as incompetent. Choosing to be portrayed. All 3 statements were included in court documents, as well as a motion from prosecutors who are asking the court to grant a request for an independent psychiatric evaluation from somebody who is not at Perkins. The prosecutors said, quote, Hoggle has used her finding of incompetency as a sword rather than a shield. As for the doctors at Perkins, this is what they have to say. I'll read you some quotes. They say that Catherine is irrational, bizarre, and withdrawn. One psychiatrist said, on the unit, she is isolative and guarded and spends most of her time intently observing her surroundings while sitting in the day room, which honestly seems to me like she's just like thinking and observing and plotting and scheming. My conspiracy, allegedly, don't sue me. They also said she has a poor understanding of most legal concepts, including the purpose of a trial, the roles of courtroom personnel, her plea options, and the role of evidence. Also, they said that Catherine had assaulted 2 patients without provocation at the facility. They also say that she was trying to escape, just like she had tried to escape way back in 2013. Remember, I told you she was doing it again. They found her looping sheets together because she was trying to like scale an outside fence to escape. They said that she had tried to escape at least 8 times, that she would suddenly like reach for a doctor's, you know, like the pass that they have to like enter. She would try to reach for that and run, and other times she would just be sitting there and she would just like run out of nowhere towards like the exit. They said that a few times she managed to like bypass the first barrier that they had, and then they would have to catch her.
Whenever I had her committed back in December of 2013, she tried to escape several times back then as well. So I mean, it's something that I expected. That's what I believe there was someone told me that in the court documents, I guess someone from Perkins said that it had something to do with her wanting to see her kids was the escapes, and that's something that would be more surprising to me than anything, simply because in the times I've talked to her, she may have asked about our oldest son maybe 3 times maximum, and every time I've talked to her. And you know, I'm like I said before, I'm not going to badmouth her simply because it doesn't do anyone any good. Like, if my kids see this, no matter what she's done or hasn't done, it doesn't help them to see their father badmouth their mother. So I'm not going to say anything about her as a mother in those terms.
As for her behaviors, she would fake fainting. So she would, okay, I shouldn't laugh, but they said that she would like slide to the ground and not get up, but everybody could tell that she was totally conscious. She's not unconscious, but she would like pretend like she was fainting. They also said that she laughed a lot at inappropriate times where it didn't make sense. And so they put her on this like, major medication. I think it was called, it was an antipsychotic, and they would forcibly give it to her. It's a lot. They also said that she had not improved and that she uses bizarre hold on, I don't know how to say this word. Hold on. Circuitous, which means of a route or journey longer than the most direct way. Circuitous. Okay. So they said, quote, she uses bizarre circuitous reasoning in conversation and regularly contradicts herself.
Catherine Hoggle has been considered mentally unstable to stand trial, but now prosecutors are hoping a new medication she's on will improve her condition.
Well, that's why the Montgomery County State's Attorney's Office wanted a delay in her competency trial.
Well, there's like a time issue, okay? And the issue is that there's a law. If you are deemed incompetent to stand trial and you're being held at a mental facility for a misdemeanor, they cannot hold you there for more than 3 years. If it's a felony, they can't hold you there for more than 5 years. So as they were coming up on the deadline of the 3-year mark, the prosecution upped the charges. I'm like doing hand signals. The prosecution upped the charges, and they charged her with like murder, so it was now a felony. So now she had to stay 5 years before she could be released for being incompetent to stand trial. If she is deemed incompetent to stand trial and the time runs out, what happens is it now becomes a civil commitment, which means that Perkins and the doctors there, it's up to their discretion whether she remains in the hospital or is released to the public. And if she is released, she's a free woman, released to go back into society and do whatever she wants.
The statute that we're dealing with here, if the charges are dismissed, the state has the right, without prejudice, to recharge her again. Even the criminal charges could come back again if her mental state improved. And we were to find out 6 months, 9 months, 10 months, 2 years from now that she had made some progress, became competent, we're allowed to legally bring the charges back.
5 years after the initial filing that that Catherine's defense attorney made, saying that she was, that they had reported she's incompetent to stand trial, 5 years after that, he files to have the charges dismissed. And he was like, basically, the clock has run out. It's been 5 years. And the prosecution comes back and is like, no, you're counting wrong. It's not 5 years from when they said she was incompetent. It's 5 years from when we charged her with the felony, from when we upped the charges. So the 5 years expires in 2022, not in 2020, like her defense attorney was trying to say. So the judge agreed with the prosecution. If we don't find her competent to stand trial by 2022, then it becomes a civil commitment and it's up to Perkins. Now that I've given you all the facts, let's talk about the theories. So there are essentially 4 theories that we're working with and 2 topics, okay? The first is, Catherine is incompetent. She's just not able to stand trial. She doesn't understand. That's one theory. The other theory is, well, she is mentally ill, but not to the point where she's incompetent to stand trial. She's faking it. She doesn't want to go to jail. She wants to do Zumba and yoga. So that's the topic of her capacities. The other topic is you know, what is going on with the kids. And there's two theories there. Reminds me so much of the Lori Vallow case. Either they're dead or, you know, they're alive somewhere, which honestly, I think they're no longer with us.
Detectives allege that Sunday afternoon, when Catherine told her father she was taking Jacob out for pizza, she instead killed him, then dumped his body. They believe later that night, either while Troy was still at work or after he had gone to sleep, she did the same to Sarah.
I've had my own professional private investigator study the facts, and this isn't part of the written part, but in the beginning they came in with an open mind. After investigating, they came to the same conclusion as the state's attorney's office and the police. Actually hired 2 or 3 of them, kind of like getting a second opinion from a doctor, and they all came back the same.
You know, if she did give them to a stranger, nobody's coming forward, right? Nobody's coming forward, and the kids have not been found. And so, I don't know. I think that one is like pretty much everybody agrees the kids are dead. So I want to talk about the competency part because I do have a theory on that. Hear me out. I think she's faking it and she is competent. Okay, first of all, if she had no idea right from wrong and she didn't understand anything that was going on, okay, why would she have the wherewithal to come up with excuses as to where the kids are? Why, when she went missing, would she cut her hair, right? That's consciousness of guilt, right? Because I know I did something wrong. I'm gonna get in trouble for it. I need to run. And then while I'm on the run, I know people are looking for me because they said she had a her missing person flyer in her hand when they found her. So she knew what was going on. And so she cut her hair so that she didn't look like the picture that people were looking for her based off of. You know what I mean? I don't know how to form a sentence. Furthermore, she is aware of the court proceedings. She's saying that she's taking these competency classes. She is having conversations with her lawyer about what's going on. She's getting better, and then she's getting worse when she realizes that getting better is not helping her case, right? She's flat out told her mom that she just doesn't want to go to prison. So she's pretending to be incompetent. I mean, her own mother is saying, no, she's competent. The same mother that was like, no, the kids are fine, they're alive. Like, now the mom's like, no, I'm starting to see what's really going on. Again, my conspiracy, allegedly, don't sue me. If she was truly like that and say, she'd be like, the kids are, I had to get rid of them. You know, like, I don't know. I feel like when people are truly like not competent to stand trial, don't even know right from wrong, they would just say what they did because they wouldn't even realize that it's wrong, right? Kind of reminds me of like the Golden State Killer. You know that case where he like was, you know, pretending to be so feeble and everything, and then they had this footage of him in the jail cell and he was like jumping around, super acrobatic and athletic. Like, a lot of people play this game where they know that, you know, pretending to be touched mentally, you're gonna get softer treatment, right? I would love to know what you guys think about this. Please tell me, do you think Catherine is competent to stand trial? What do you think happened to the kids? What do you think should happen to Catherine? Please let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching and everything that you do. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Oh, and I want to show you guys my sweater, my Christmas sweater. I got it from Etsy. Look, 0 stars wasn't an option. For real. 2020, I want my money back. And the little face mask here. Anyway, so thank you guys so much. I think I said that already. Thank you guys.
I started working on a story about...
Oh, cool. So Ashley Benefield, yeah. So I am going to... Oh, gotta hit the autopilot. Yep. And then let me finish this wall. I'm finishing the wall in about 4 squares or whatever. Fun. So I'm going to take a small break here, guys, to go walk for 2 hours and water the garden. And so I'm going to take a break here, and I'll be back here. It's like 1:10 in the morning, or 1:10 in the afternoon, and so it's probably like 3. I'll probably be back by 3:30. Very good. Okay, I'm going to exit here. And I'll be back, guys. I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to pause